Hey everybody. I'm really sorry I missed half of the presentation before, but I had the kids earlier and I literally just came in the door. But in this half hour that I got, I learned a lot. Foremost, that I don't know anything about mobile security or mobile. Okay, but that was really interesting, and I would like to catch up on one of the last sentences from Miriam. Actually, people are human beings, and human beings do make mistakes, and that is my starting sentence because I make mistakes all the time. So that led me to the Center of Excellence to help me in my daily work, and I would like to give you a brief overview over it and focus on just a few core components, security and governance, especially because there is a lot of cool stuff in there, a lot to discover and to experience, but I will focus on security and governance for now. All right. Press the button, nothing works. Here we go. Short introduction for myself. Who am I? I am a PowerPlattform consultant by day, so to say. And I come from change management and user adoption. That's my background. So usually I focus on the human stuff and the human side. I'm not an IT guy. I just happen to work in IT accidentally, I always say. So I concentrate and I focus on beginner stuff. And whatever I learn, I try to make easy for everybody else to catch, because learning is one of my core competences, I think. And learning and sharing what I just learned just brought me to the happy situation that I got nominated as a business application MVP in this September. And yeah, now I'm even more struggling with learning and understanding everything, and trying to bring understanding to other people. So I said at the beginning, I'm Power Platform consultant by day. I'm a designer, graphic designer by night. So if anyone here happens to need a cool logo for his company or shirt or whatever, ask me. Okay, but it's not about me tonight. So it's about the Center of Excellence. And here's a brief glimpse at the agenda. What am I going to tell you tonight? I start with what is the Center of Excellence Starter Kit, because I think Center of Excellence Starter Kit says nothing much about what is it used for. So we will have a quick look at a definition, or at some different definitions, and see what are the goals of the Starter Kit. And just so you know, in this session, I will often refer to COE because it's easier to say than Center of Excellence Starter Kit. That's quite and long. So the COE, that's what the cool kids say. After the definition and the goals of the COE, we will look for whom that actually is, what it is exactly, and why do you need it, or why should you care? Because that is very important, and all of my customers started at this point. Why do I need it, and who is my target audience? And that helped a lot to bring order to this those lots of applications that are in there. Then I give you some hints and ideas on how to install and deploy this, a minimal path to awesome with some links. I can paste those links in the chat. And if we have time in the end, I will show you a few apps just that you get a little bit of experience how it looks and feels to work with the starter kit. All right, let's dive into the definition. What is the Center of Excellence Starter Kit? And I Googled a little bit, and just to get an idea about the term Center of Excellence. And I brought you 3 different definitions that will cover pretty much the core ideas of any COE out there. The first one, and I like this a lot, is a COE Center of Excellence brings together people from different disciplines and provides shared facilities and resources. It is able to combine existing expertise and resources in a discipline or capability to achieve, drumroll, a sustained world-class performance and value. And I like this a lot, because world-class performance and value sounds like I would want it. All right, the second definition that I have is a COE is a coordination role that ensures change initiatives are implemented consistently and well using standard processes and competent people. So it focuses on a few different things. And the last one I like the most. I got that one. It's actually a quote from a Microsoft employer, and I won't tell from whom. A COE is a template collection of best practices, period. And I like it. It's very puristic and on point. And all 3 of them are true. And if we would boil them down and see what's the core inside these core definitions, then we would go to the COE brings together different people provides resources and support around knowledge and change, and it shall improve your performance. And that is the core idea of the Center of Excellence. So that means the goal of the Center of Excellence, is to drive innovation, break down silos between different areas and different roles, and to share knowledge and solution within your company or within your group of people using the Power Platform. And now you can see that it actually makes sense what I said in the beginning. I am focusing on the human side. I'm come from the change and user adoption area. So the COE is a technical solution, yes, and it supports your technical solution and your Power Platform solutions, yet people are working with it. And since we heard earlier that people make mistakes, sometimes people need help and need an idea of why to use a COE. So after we have a rough idea what the COE is for, let's look actually into it. What is inside the Center of Excellence? If you download this, you will get a whole bunch of stuff. And I think I go through this, I open this slide completely just to see what we have in here, like a lot of things. The components, the Center of Excellence is divided into 6 components. You have the core components, governance components, nurture components, theming, innovation and backlog components, and the extend and modify components. And I would really love to walk you through all of these, but it's a lot. It is really very much stuff, and I simply don't have the time to explain everything. But what you usually start with are the core components, because if you download and deploy the Center of Excellence, the core components are enough. You can completely start with them and start working with it. But if you really want to make it work how it's intended to work, you need at least the core components, the governance components, and the nurture components. Those are pretty good. And what I'm showing here is more or less just the applications that are inside the COE. If you want those applications to use, you need a little bit of more. Of course, you need the database tables, you need flows and security groups and permissions, connections, and so on and so on. This is also all included. And but this would be go beyond the scope of this slide to list everything that's inside. So these are just the apps you can work with. And I will show you later on, for example, the Power Platform admin view. That's the most well-known application, actually, to give you an overview of what's happening with the Power Platform in your tenant. We will also look at the Developer Compliance Center, which is pretty cool, and the Maker Assessment. So I picked a few very cool apps that I really like and use a lot, actually, and show them to you. But I just wanted to make clear that there is a lot of stuff in the COE that you can use. There are very cool business process flows in here. There are really, really good automated flows and scheduled flows to clean up old objects. There's also an app for that to configure it. There are a few applications that are aimed at the user or at the maker, so to say, the citizen developer. You can, for example, provide them a template catalog of whole apps or component libraries over here, which are all in the themes that you set up according to your corporate identity or something. You can really make life for your user and your citizen developer easy on the one hand, because you make it easier for them to work with Power Apps and Power Automate mainly, and you can make your life as an admin easier to keep an overview of what's happening in the Power Platform in your tenant. So the COE is a lot. There are many apps and many flows and many tables and all this stuff. And of course, you would ask yourself, how much does it cost and where do I get it? And that's the neat part. That are the costs, more or less. For all who don't know the icon, this is the icon of GitHub, which means the COE is an open source project. So you can pretty much download and install it for free. Everything you need to spend is the time that it takes you to install and deploy it. And that is, I would say, if you know what you're doing, you will need a couple of hours to install it. Usually I plan half a day. If you don't know what you're doing, and if you still have to read the documentation and then prepare some things, then it takes, I think, a whole day. to install and deploy it completely, but you can get everything, the whole solution and everything what's inside it for free. You just have to pay for one license. You need a PowerPlattform license per app plan, and then you can roll it out and use it on your tenant. Since this is open source, if you are working with it and if you have cool ideas, you are very welcome to actively contribute to it. There are actually many contributors right now who are working with it. And this leads to the fact that you have one release per month. So if you're working with the COE, make sure to check the latest release every month to update it, because if you just deployed it and a few months later you check it again, that might not be working anymore because you will need the latest version. But the updating process is very well documented and actually not that complicated, and it works really fast. I mean, integrating a solution with the PowerPlattform is usually something that can take a while. But with the COE, I think it's 10 to 15 minutes per upgrade, and then you are done. So this works pretty good. All right. That's for the costs of it. Now I would like to talk a little bit about for whom the whole COE is, what this is and what this provides, and why would you need it. Okay, let's have a look. We have different groups of people involved in the PowerPlattform in most of the organizations. On the one hand, we have the users, and on the other hand, we have developer, whereby developer, I mean IT employees. Not only a developer, there's also administrators and everybody who's working in IT, who is not an end user. That are the two main groups we have. On the one hand, the user, who usually use software. That's all they do. They have a passive usage of software, and they don't write code. There's a grammar mistake in there. But what they can do is they can define requirements for their own work role. If I have, I don't know, experts in working in HR, and I ask them what are your requirements to fulfill your work role, they usually have a pretty good idea what they need and what they don't need. And that is very crucial. Because on the other hand, we have the developer or the IT guys, let's say, and they develop or provide software to the user. If they develop the software themselves, they do write code. And what they can do is they can translate requirements into solutions. And that's the first crucial part here, because I'm not sure if you recognized that once before in your lifetime, but from my experience, when I talk to users and I talk to IT people, I realize that quite often they speak the same language, but they also don't speak the same language because there's a gap between the IT and the business departments. And sometimes it's difficult for them to communicate because they use different terms and have a different understanding of how things work at the workplace, especially software. So if you can translate requirements into solution like the developer or the IT people can do, that's very good and that's very valuable. But you need somebody to tell you the requirements in a way that you can understand them. So you need to close the gap between the business and the IT department. And there we have the third role that is very crucial with the PowerPlattform, that are the maker. The maker are somewhat in between. Maker or citizen developer, you can, I think, call them whatever you want. But those are the people who develop solutions with the PowerPlattform for apps, flows, dashboards, or virtual agents. Usually they do that with the no or low code. And that is the crucial part, can understand and translate requirements because they come from the business area and they have an idea how IT solutions or technical solution with the PowerPlattform work. So they can understand and translate the requirements from the user. And if they are not able to come up with a solution themselves, they can work with IT people or developer to get a full-grown business solution, and they can translate the requirements. This is a very important part. So all those three roles, all those people working with the PowerPlattform now, and that sometimes can be difficult because all those three people in the PowerPlattform they all of a sudden have to work with each other. And I don't mean like within the room, they really have to collaborate with each other. And what does it mean if people who have never worked together now can or have to work together? And to look into that, I would like to let the users out of the equation at this point, because they are usually just passively using the solutions or the software. And I would like to focus on the maker and the developer or the IT people. So let's take a look. Do we have the maker and developer, and where do they come from? What are their main skills, and why would they maybe need help, and why can the COE help with that? So I'll start on the left-hand side with the maker, and this is just a roughly sketch. It isn't necessarily true for every maker and for every citizen developer, but overall this gives a good overview. Usually the maker or citizen developer come from the business area, so they are pretty good in knowing business requirements. They have somewhat IT skills because they are passionate about finding solutions and creating solutions for themselves and for their team. But usually, if you start out with the Power Platform in your organizations, their Power Platform skills are kind of poorly developed because Power Platform is kind of new for most people, so they have to learn that. On the other hand, we have the IT people. And how does this diagram look for them? Usually they have a fair idea about the business requirements because they work in their company and they know what's up. But this is not their main focus, since they are not there to know the business requirements. They are there for their IT skills, and they make sure that the whole IT department is up and running and is secure. So those are pretty good. And what is often overlooked from my experience is that if you're working in IT, that doesn't necessarily mean that you know your way around the Power Platform, because the Power Platform has their own syntax, PowerFX, and this is also new for everybody who's new to the Power Platform. I just happened to realize that a lot of people, a lot of business decision makers actually assume that if you're working in the IT department, you automatically know your way around the Power Platform, and that isn't true, because I think you have realized that yourself, because if you, for example, know a lot about software development and know your way how a good LLM process should work, that doesn't necessarily mean that this is the same way in the Power Platform. It is difficult and a little bit different. So, but what we want, if we introduce a Power Platform and we introduce the maker to the developer and we start to create fusion teams where both of them work together, what we want is to happen is that our citizen developer and maker learn a little bit more from the IT. If I work together with a developer, and I just did, actually, I learned a lot about application lifecycle management processes and how this should be. I just learned about source control, about my development environment, a testing environment, and a production environment. I didn't know that before because I never used it and I never needed it to know. But now I have better IT skills because I work together with some developers. On the other hand, we would want to expect that our IT guys and IT people, let's say that way, would increase their business requirements or the knowledge about the business requirements, because they now work together with people from the business area, which can translate the requirements in the business role. So that's good as well. And what ultimately should happen is that both equally develop Power Platform skills, because both have to learn new skills and both have different ideas and perspective and backgrounds, and throw it into the mix. And that's usually when learning happens. And so that this can be possible, that this learning and this growing actually can happen, you need something. And I would like to quote Emma Darcy here. She's working a lot with citizen developer over in the US. She's always talking about a safe space for maker. And this safe space is very much important, because from my experience, when I introduce the Power Platform in companies and organizations, the maker and the IT people do have different questions about the Power Platform. I have listed a few here just to show you what can be done with the safe space. Usually the maker have the question, what can I do with the Power Platform? I have no idea. How does it work? Obviously, because I've never worked with it. Now, the two important questions are, what am I allowed to do? Because I am a maker, I'm not used to the fact that I can work with IT solutions within my company. I wasn't allowed before. Now I am suddenly allowed. So what can I do? What am I allowed to? And really important, can I break anything? Because if maker don't know what they are allowed to do and what they are not allowed to do, they feel insecure about what to do, what to try out, and you don't really want to break, I don't know, business critical apps, for example. So it's important that even maker understand that there is like a testing environment or a development environment so that they don't break anything in production. That is very important. As an IT people, you know that by heart because you've learned that. Now let's have a look at the other side, at the IT people. They too have questions. And two of them are the same. Because usually IT people don't have an idea by heart, what can I do with the Power Platform, what's possible and what's not. If I'm used to work in TypeScript or C#, I do know what I can do, but I don't know what's possible with the Power Platform. And I don't necessarily know how does it work. So a lot of questions maker and IT people have are the same. So they do have the same question. It makes sense for them to bring them together to make learning possible for both of them. And one very important question is, how do I integrate this into my existing processes? Because when I'm in charge for the IT at my company, I do have existing processes, and usually this whole thing works. And I don't want like a bunch of citizen developer and maker to come into my processes and try things out and maybe breaks things. So for developer, it's also very important to have this safe space where they can just try everything out without the fear of breaking anything out and to being able to test how this works in real life in a testing environment. So the ultimate question that is for both of them is, how do I collaborate with the others? What is possible and how do we do that? So if you can create a safe space, and safe space means an environment or some kind of space where maker and developer can try things out without breaking things and where all the rules are clear. For example, security and governance is set up and everything is clear, then they can do whatever they want. They can just learn what works and what doesn't work. So this concept of a safe space is very important. And that's what I tell everybody I work with before setting up a COE and before introducing the Power Platform. That's the first thing I do ever. All right. Now, as we've cleared for whom that is, what it is, and why it's important, a quick view into how to get it. And this is the path to Authn. As I said earlier, this is an open source project. So you have a GitHub repository, and I will paste those links if you need them in the chat later on. There is a GitHub repository where you can find everything what you need. You can find the source code, you can find the solutions to download, you can find the very well documentation, and you can find a lot of issues and an FAQ where people have a lot of questions asked already, a lot of questions has been answered already, and this has always been keeping up to date. So that is where you get it and where you can download it. Additionally, what you have, and I would recommend you to use it, the Microsoft Docs instruction. This is a very well documented solution which has multiple pages of installation guides and what are the requirements, what you need, and how to deploy it. This is very, very important. Another thing that is quite handy, because I'm spending sometimes way too much time to find the latest release, I will put up the direct link to the latest release in the chat as well, because sometimes I lost my way around GitHub and then I'm looking for the latest release and can't find it, and that's frustrating. So there is a direct link to the latest release, and I just put the one for November in. And sometimes during installation or deployment of the COE, the documentation is very good and very up to date, but there is also video instruction. And this is a whole series of videos. I think you have 6 or 7 videos by now, all of them like around an hour or something, explaining every part of the COE, how to download it, how to install it, because for most of the different parts of the COE. You need to create custom connectors, for example, or enable certain flows or certain parts in your solution. And those videos explain it very, very well. And you can pause it and rewind and watch again. And those are very, very helpful if you deploy them for the first time. Okay, let's have a look. Half an hour done. So now we have a little bit of time to check a few components. And as I said earlier, I don't want to show everything. I just want to focus a little bit on security and governance components. And I picked them from the core governance and nurture components. I would like to show you the DLP editor. This one is pretty cool and comes in very handy. The PowerPlattform admin view, and I will start with that, Developer Compliance Center, and the Maker Assessment. And for that, I will jump into my browser. Here we go. This is my developer tenant, and I'm here in my COE demo environment where I set it up. And this is also a recommendation. If you deploy the COE, use a specific environment for that. That is very handy. And here I don't have installed every component, but I have installed the core components, governance, and the nurture components, I think. So here are all my apps that are inside. We don't see the flows and everything else, but I think the apps are sufficient for now. And as I said, I wanted to start with the PowerPlattform admin view. This one. This is the only model-driven app within this solution. All the other apps are Canvas apps. So the PowerPlattform admin view is a quite nice dashboard here that shows you everything that is going on with the PowerPlattform in your whole tenant. This is not only looking at one environment, but all environments, and gives you an overview of what happens. So we can see all our active makers, and since this is my developer tenant, I am the only active maker. But it brings me on top. So we see all our active environments and see a quick sum up of the number of apps we have there and the number of flows per each environment. And next to our active makers, that are the app makers, we have the most recent or the most active makers for flows here as well. I see I have a little bit more flows than apps. This is getting more interesting the more user or maker you have who are really active on the environment. Here we have an overview over the flows on the right side and apps on the left side, which are active. I can see the name, the app owner, when the app was created and when was it lastly modified. The same thing for the flows. But this is just a quick overview here. I can go into more detail because on the left-hand side, we have more detailed pages here. Well, if we leave the dashboard and jump into the apps, I get a list of all my apps in my tenant, get the name, in which environment this app is, who the owner is, and also something if an app doesn't have an owner. That's very important for security and compliance, which I will explain later on. I can see when the app was created, modified, last launched. And I haven't done any, wasn't working very often with my developer tenant lately. I can see which type of app we have, Canvas app or model-driven app, and kind of important if you want to include your apps in any kind of flows, for example, or graph calls, you get the app ID string. Very handy if you're looking for it. You can all find them in the COE. The whole overview, or likewise overview, we have for the portals, and I think I don't have deployed any portals yet, right? We can see that for the flows. Yep. There we can also see if our flows are active or if they are stopped. Very handy, it's a good overview. We can see all our environments, all our connectors, chatbots, UI flows, and audit logs. Now, the audit logs is a special thing that you need to activate, and you need the permissions for that on your tenant. So if you have the global admin right, that would be very helpful for that. If you have the global admin role, if you enable those audit logs, you can see which app was launched when and where, and you get a detailed description on the launches. That is very helpful. You can always also get a list of all your makers. As I mentioned, I'm the only one on my environment, so yeah. And all the Power Platform users that we have as well. Well, I don't have any user, I'm the only one, so I'm the only maker. And this dashboard and this Power Platform admin view is very handy and can come in very handy straight away. Yeah, what else do we have? I wanted to show you the DLP editor. This is the data loss prevention editor. And I hope you're familiar with data loss preventions and how to set them up in the Power Platform. This is basically where you can decide which connectors you want to use in which context and which connectors you don't want to use at all. And of course, you can use different DLP policies for your different environments. And I have just on one environment, I have one DLP in place. This is my personal productivity DLP. And I can check my different environments here on the upper right-hand side. Here I can see all my environments I have in place. If I would check another environment, I would see there is no DLP in place. So personal productivity is the only environment where I have one in place. And what I can do now, I can rename my policy, but I can see which connectors I have assigned in the business side and in the non-business side, and what connectors I have blocked. For this DLP, for example, I have no blocked connectors at all, and I've defined 10 connectors to non-business side. So I can't use any business connectors with non-business connectors in one flow or in one app. So I just excluded all the Amazon and Gmail connectors just for demonstration purposes. And if I would say this DLP is quite handy, and I have, let's say, multiple environments in my organization, let's say I have 20 or 30 or something, and I want this DLP to be in place in any environment, what I usually would have to do is I would have to go in every environment and recreate this DLP over and over again. And this is actually a lot of work. The DLP editor now actually gives me the opportunity to add those DLPs to all environments or to multiple environments, or to deploy it in all environments and exclude certain environments. Let's say I would like to add them to multiple environments. And now I can select my environments to deploy this DLP automatically. And the cool thing is there's this impact analysis that shows me all the apps and flows that are already in place in this environment. And now it gets checked, is any of those apps or flows are using them those connectors which I have excluded or blocked, and which apps are actually impacted by this DLP. And this is very this is very handy if you want to roll up a DLP on different and multiple environments, and you don't know if that interferes with any apps or flows your user, maker, or developer have created there. And then you get a review, and there you have it all just on one side. And then you can update your policies. And this takes over a lot of work that you would normally do for every and each environment, and you don't have this impact analysis. So this one is really helpful if you roll out DLP policies, which I really recommend. Actually, from my experience, I work with a lot of customers with the Power Platform, and I think I just found one customer I ever had who have a DLP in place, and most of them have no idea that there is, or what DLPs are and what to use them for. So if you happen to work with a Power Platform wherever, or if you are working with a partner or whatever, please make sure that you have DLPs and have a look into them. They are super handy and super helpful, and can really improve the security and in your Power Platform environments. So, and with the DLP editor from the COE, you can deploy them to multiple environments at once, and that makes your life so much easier and saves you so much time. What else did I want to show you? I have the maker assessment. And this one is an app assessment tool, which is really cool. This aims at the makers. So if you have multiple maker and they want to start, like they want to create a new app or a new solution, whatever the solution might be, they can have this assessment tool, which helps them a lot. Let's say we want to start a new solution, and this is just a test solution. We need to provide a name here. And for what team is the solution? This is the test team, and we need a description, and I just type in some random letters here. And as you see, now I have the start button, and it's to see this is crucial that I fill out the name, the team, and I provided any kind of description. And you will see later on why this is important. So now I have the possibility to start this assessment tool, and now our maker will be guided through this assessment for what is the use case, what is the audience of your solution, how complex is your solution, what data will you use, and will you need any support. So now you can decide what kind of solution do you have. Are you building a chatbot? Do you a mobile or a tablet app, or are you working a workflow? Let's say we want to create a workflow, and my use case would be daily operations or management. Let's say productivity. That's usually the most important thing. Then we can check the audience. Who's the target audience for your app? Who's the audience size? And so on and so on. I don't want to run through all the steps, but what this basically is, this gives your maker a guideline of what to think about before you start building a solution. For example, if you check the data, here's the question, are there custom APIs that you need to connect to? And if your user says, well, yes or no, or I have no idea, then the user is forced to think about, what am I going to do with this app? What is my plan? And will I need help for that? Because who will building the app is a question. I need help, it's just me, it's me and my team. So that really helps you to see where your makers are at the moment from a skill level and where they want to be and what ideas do they have. And that is it's a process that can bring the IT and the business area closer together, because if the maker says, I have a brilliant idea and it's really supporting me and my whole team, and it will cost me, it will save me a lot of time at my daily work, but I have no idea how to implement it, then you can run through this assessment and you have a clear idea of what the makers are aiming to do and how you can support them maybe. So this is really, really important, because if you just hit the submit button, what usually happens, okay, I've missed some questions, and now it's recommended me to go back and answer them, but I can say I want to start building. Anyway, I will be guided through the Power Up Maker portal where I can start building my solution now. Now what happens now? As an admin, I get an email with all those answers from the maker assessment. And with this email, I get all my information about this app, which is just about to be built. Because in the end, if the app or the solution from maker is done and ready, he can start another assessment that I can put this app in my app catalog. So this app catalog, I've just put in 4 apps here. I can show them to all of my users, say those are the apps that you can use which are built. I can filter this app catalog for updated apps, new apps, or featured apps, but I just have deployed those 4. So that means not every solution, not every app, not every flow that is built in my environment on my tenant needs to be given to the user. Actually, I have the possibility to say which app is going to be shown or presented to the users, and I will use this app catalog for that. Now, me as an admin, I have the opportunity and the possibility to pick which app and which solution I will give to my user, and I can use that with the Developer Compliance Center, for example. The Developer Compliance Center lists all the apps that are in my tenant. As you can see, there is a huge difference. These are all the apps that are in my tenant, but I just deployed 4 to my app catalog for my users to see. And the Developer Compliance Center actually helps me to pick out which apps I could really give my users in the app catalog to work with, because I have this little indicator in every app on the upper right side here, which is yellow, orange, red, or green. And this gives me an idea of how well the app is developed and described. If I look in the details from this one, I see the app compliance. I've seen submitted support details. I don't really have support details submitted. And that is because I didn't make the assessment, the maker assessment I showed you earlier, where I can deploy my support details. This app hasn't been published within the last 60 days, so I have to, this is very likely that this app is old, but I filled out the app description. That's really neat. So if my maker ran through the assessment and provided me with all the information that I want to have here, and I have all the information that I need to say, okay, this seems to be a well-supported app, a very compliant app, I can now launch it, and I can deploy it to my app catalog. Then I could do it here. I can even say, I want to delete the app, I want to see the app settings, I want to republish it, I want to launch it, and I want to email my users. So I can here email all the users which are using the app, and so I can really reach my target audience really fast. And this Developer Compliance Center actually helps me a lot in, oops, what's happening here? That's new. Okay. This Compliance Center helps me a lot to get a grip and an idea what's going on in my tenant, which apps are there, and how well are they written, and how well are they supported. So as we can see, I don't have any app which is completely compliant. There's no green apps. I should do more work on that. And maybe that would be the idea how I can deploy more apps in my app catalogs. But as you can see, and hopefully I've showed you how this could work if you give your maker a guideline on an assessment to what they should think about before they start building an app. Then you get a lot of information how compliant and how secure an app might be, so you can have a good idea and a good baseline actually if you want to deploy them in your app catalog that you show to the user. And the user can see this app catalog, see the description, if you have the description, and you can request access on this app and you can launch the app from there. That makes it really easy and convenient for the user to see what apps you provide and which apps you have in your company, which are secure and compliant. And you have a grip on which apps to give the users access to. And I think that's, together with the dashboard we have here, you have a very good idea what's going on in your tenant. And if anything is going on in your tenant, like a flow or an app, and you didn't actually said, okay, I allow this, you can stop the flow and you can stop the app. You can even delete those apps. And you have a very good grip on security and compliance. And if you have this, you have with this COE even there are different components, the nurturing components, for example, where you can create a very nice portal for your makers where they can find all the useful information on how the Power Apps works and how the function work and what are the security and compliance guidelines in your environment. So I mentioned the safe space earlier. You can, with the COE and the nurturing components, you can very easily explain your maker what's allowed and what's not allowed, how your DLPs look, and what your security concept is, and how this process works in running through your assessment. And then they can start building an app, and then they find the app that is ready in the app catalog. So this whole process you can explain very easily to your maker with the COE, and that gives them the security and the secure feeling that they can't break anything. And before they may break anything, you have the possibility to say, oh, stop that. That's not okay. So the COE gives you a lot of possibility to really work on your security and compliance concepts and help deploy and administrate the Power Platform in your in your tenant. And I think that's it. If I would jump back to my presentation, let's see. Yeah, I am done. The last slide is just the thanks for your attention slide. And with that, I would like to say thank you very much for your attention. Are there any questions or comments?
So first of all, thank you very, very much. Pretty interesting. And good to see that there is that kind of concept to, as you said, to bring together the citizen developers and IT, and make sure that the middle ground is set, so to say.
And maybe I should add one more thing now, as you just mentioned it. The idea of Microsoft behind the term starter kit is, as you see, that those are all canvas apps and model-driven apps. So that means you can edit those apps as you like. So you have the starting point. If some of those apps don't work the way you want them to work, or it doesn't work with your guidelines, you can change them, because there's a baseline of Power Apps. So you can work with it and edit it for your needs, actually.
Do you have any experience? Do you have any customers which actively use it already to guide their people?
Yes, 2 actually.
Good.
Yes, the one customer, they just told me we have the COE and we have a very detailed environment and security concept in place. Would you like to check it for us? And I said, yes, great. So I didn't build it with them, but this looks really good. And now the other customer who just seen a session of mine last week, I guess, and they said, we need this COE because there's so much going on in our tenant. We have no idea. We are starting to implement this, well, beginning of January, actually, because this year is almost over. But yeah.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
It's all going so fast in the last couple of months, right?
Crazy every year. Cool. Are there any other questions?
Or does anyone have any experience with the COE so far? That would be interesting.
So I don't, but I'm, as you said before, just being in IT doesn't make me a good user of the Power Platform. And every time I open it up, I'm like, okay, now what to do? So I was able to set up a flow for myself, but besides that, nothing else. So also no experience on the starter kit.
That's where most of them start. I think my first flow was a tea timer. I pressed the button and 3 minutes later I got, oh, your tea bag's still in the cup.
Yeah, but I think there is a lot of things are possible with the Power Platform, with all the connections that are available and that you can do yourself.
Yes,
it's really, really.
The custom connector really make it really, really powerful.
Yeah.
If you can work with REST APIs, that is important, especially for a lot of people coming from IT who have an idea what is an API actually.
Yes. Yeah. So I think this is a product that we will see more and more in the future. And I think what is really interesting, and that is a little bit also what I heard from your customers. There are a lot of things going on because you can do just small automation parts, really small things without any big invest that you have to do, besides licensing, obviously, but not as a traditional development stuff where you have to have your big plan, waterfall thingy, and so on. People can just start. And that makes it so complicated to keep it all in a good state and to have the eye on it. So
exactly. What happens quite often is actually because I think in every enterprise license package there is a Power Platform involved already. So if you don't switch it off in the beginning, user can start, and if you have curious users clicking around, they will find it and they will use it. And since they don't have like standalone licenses, they start working or start implementing apps or workflows on and use SharePoint as a data source, for example. And this is a horrible idea. It works, yes, and it doesn't cost you additional licensing, but it works. And this is actually a lot of customers I am working with right now started like that and have multiple apps in place with SharePoint as a data data source, so to say. And now they are learning why this was a bad idea, because they didn't really involve the IT department. The IT department was like, I would never do that. I would use like a database, actually. Yeah, but a database would cost additional money, so we don't do that. And yeah, and now we have it. Now we have multiple apps and flows based on SharePoint lists, which is kind of fine, but it's lacks, scalability and security.
That does not scale to the future. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And I just had this happen to me today, that one of the app makers and owner of those apps is leaving the company. And all of those SharePoint lists are connected to a certain team. And so he can't really give those SharePoint lists to the IT department because they are not part of the team. So it's hardly possible to change the ownership of the apps and flows. And it's like a lot of work for the IT department now to rebuild those SharePoint lists or transfer it all into Dataverse. It's a lot of work. It's a nightmare, actually. So, but yeah, that's
better start correctly from the beginning.
Yes. Start to think what you're doing and then start building it up.
Okay, perfect. So, any other questions or comments or experiences or anything for Michael? Okay, then Michael.
I was loving because we are facing the same issue. We have Power Platforms. Well, it is enabled by default, right? And each and every user, build apps, and it's like a mess currently. And I was wondering if with this solution you showed, is there any way to control who is able to build apps, and what happens if the app maker leaves the company, right? And who is gonna take over the app? So you also need to make sure, right?
Yep, absolutely. So it's not possible with the COE to control who can make apps and who not, but you don't need the COE for that. You can use it in the Power Platform Admin Center. You can connect environments to security roles, and then you can see which user you connect to the security role, and that's how you control who is able to make apps. That will be the first one. And let me share my screen real quick again to show you the components of the Power Platform. If you have an app owner leaving the company, would leave behind an app without an owner, you have in the governance components, you have cleanup objects app. And this one runs through every app that doesn't have an owner in place. And you can decide to switch the ownership or to archive it. And therefore you have an app and a flow to archive and clean up everything from within solutions. So this one helps a lot with those apps who don't have an owner anymore. But to control who is able to make apps and to come up with app, you would do that in the Power Platform Admin Center. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But I do have a different session just about security concepts around Power Platform and how to build it up. What do you need to have in place to have a good security concept?
Then drop us the link for that, please. Tell us where to see it.
Will do.
Perfect. Yeah, so where can people find you the next time? Do you have any upcoming sessions somewhere?
I think that, yes, in December I'm talking about, in December I have a user group Hannover or Essen, I'm not sure, but this will be this session here right now all over again, so you know that already. I think I'm at the Festive Tech calendar, but that will be an introduction into the developer sandbox, so it's not really the same thing, which is really helpful actually to test out Power Platform solutions. I don't know. I would say best is to find me on Twitter at micro42. That's where I'm most of the time and where I announce where I'm going to speak and give presentations. And I think the session about the security concept will be at the Scottish Summit in February 2020, but that is still some time. And I'm not sure. I'm not announced yet. We will see if I'm going to deliver this session. I have no idea.
So if you want to have a place for practicing or to give the improved version after the Scottish Summit, just let me know.
Well, I do have the session about the what do I need for a good security concept for the Power Platform, and a special session around data loss prevention policies.
Nice.
So I'm happy to deliver them because those are pretty new, actually.
Very good to hear. Maren, please write it down right away. And I will also, so we don't forget it.
Good. Will do. And we'll stay in touch.
Perfect. Thank you very, very much. Thank you for your time, for your interesting presentation. I did not know anything about the starter kit, so thank you for lighting up.
I'm happy.